So as a young police cadet, firearms instructors in the academy, in talking about dry fire, set the young cadets up to dry fire sitting at home in the evening, focusing on sight picture and trigger control and trigger reset. There's baby steps coming from a crawl because they're literally instructing people who had not shot a gun, particularly a handgun, prior to entering the police academy. This is going to be very different. We're going to talk about everything being purpose driven. When you manage your time and you're going to dry fire, you're taking time out in the evening from your routine, from your family, and spending time on this, everything should be purposeful, yes?
Absolutely, absolutely. And dry firing is one of those things that when you do, if you don't do it with a purpose, with an actual goal in mind, it's going to become mind-numbingly boring quick. Because one of the things, Mike, that people need to consider is dry firing 10 or 20 times doesn't do you as much good as dry firing 10 or 20,000 times. So prepare yourself for the long haul. One of the things I like to tell my students is establish some near-term and far-term goals for yourself. This is a great way to establish that honey spot out in front of your eyes, where your eyes will automatically go to the sights. There's more than just lining up left and right, straight across the top, trigger press, undisturbed sight picture, break, hold, release.
Okay.
There's much more to it than that, and that's some of the things that we'll touch on as we continue on.
Okay, so we got a quiet room, living room, garage, wherever you're going to set up for dry fire practice. How do we get started?
Well, the first consideration that I would always recommend, and always first and foremost with all firearms related activities, is safety. Safety, safety, safety. Always adhere to the maximum tenet of gun handling. Treat every gun as if it's loaded. That way, no matter if somehow you overlook a round in the chamber, if you're treating every gun as if it's loaded, vis-a-vis, you never point a loaded gun at anybody you don't want to harm or anything you don't want to harm. You will, if it does happen to go off, it will go off in a direction that will cause the least possible amount of human and or collateral damage.
Sure.
That's the tenet. We use the same tenets in dry firing. Okay.
Where do we start?
Well, again, first thing we're going to do is we're going to come into the room, we're going to sterilize the room. As you can see, for demonstration purposes only, I have a standard 1911 Wilson's CQB combat right here. But for all my demonstrations, I'm going to be utilizing an inert plastic Glock. It's a training aid. This happens to be a model of Glock 17. You can get these through common outlets. As you can see by the end of it, there is no barrel. It's all one piece of plastic. It cannot go off. It is not a firearm. In law enforcement and the military, we use these to practice our weapons retention drills and our takeaway drills. Now, there is also an added benefit. You can use these to practice as you're going through your house. You can, as you're approaching a barrier or some type of portal, you can pull the gun back, slice the pie, without any fear of putting it around through a wall. So these are good. So you'll see me handling this a lot today. If you are just doing nothing but practicing, Mike, if you're out on the range and you want to see how your 1911 is and you're out there practicing and practicing and practicing, you load it up after you're done, you holster, and you go about your day. Your sidearm's with you. But when you come into a dry fire exercise, the problem comes in that you're going to be dry firing with the same weapon that's typically loaded every day. So how do you separate the mental aspects of having a weapon that's loaded every day, that you carry every day loaded, and now you're going to shoot it empty, and then you're going to have to carry on with your day after the session. And this is how you do this. When I come into a dry firing session, and this is what I teach my students, this is what I taught while I was with federal agencies to the basic agent trainees and to the advanced students. You take your service weapon, you sterilize the room. You sterilize the room, make sure there's no rounds in the room. You clear your area of non-essential personnel. Everybody goes outside, you shut the door. That barrier, that door shutting, tells you this is now a dry fire room. You come into the room, the weapon has been checked, it's empty. The way that you properly check the weapon, and again we're holding a live 1911. In this case, you have a magazine well. The weapon will be in, if it's 1911, it'll be cocked and locked. There'll be a magazine inserted. We want to inspect the magazine well to make sure the magazine well is empty. You always drop the source ammunition first. You lock the slide to the rear. Make sure that there's nothing in the ejection port. You physically, or you visually and then physically check the chamber to make sure that there's nothing in the chamber. You pause, you look away, you break your concentration. Then you come back and you do the same thing again. You check the magazine well, you see it's empty, you stick your finger in there, battle it around, there's nothing in there. You look at the chamber, there's nothing in the chamber, physically you stick your finger in there. Then you look inside the bore, there's nothing in the bore, stick your finger in there, sure enough it's empty. Now the weapon has been rendered safe. Would you agree?
Clear.
Okay. Let the slide go forward on 1911, you carry it forward. Now this weapon is ready to use in dry fire exercises. So you don't have anything in here, there's no magazines, there's no ammunition. You conduct your dry fire exercise. After you're done, lock the weapon to the rear and place it on the table.
Why do we have this on the wall?
Primary firearms students get the dot. It's your basic training device for all beginning students. However, it also happens to be an excellent training device for further on students, your more advanced, your master class, because you can never get too much dot training. What you want to do, of course, is line up your sight picture, equal light left and right of your front sight tenon, straight across the top. And what you're seeking is a hammer fall without disturbing your front sight picture. A lot of times what will happen, inert weapon, what will happen is, if I may, Mike, if I can get you to stand over here.
Do that.
It's never a good practice to have somebody, even in front of an inert weapon, if you can choose, to have them stand behind you. I would always, if possible, have somebody stand in a non-lethal zone, if you will, even with an inert weapon. I mean, practice makes perfect, but we're going to correct that. So what you wind up with is a lot of people, they get the gun out in front of them, they get a nice sight picture, they apply pressure to the rear on the trigger, and then you wind up with an anticipatory push down. So what you want to try to accomplish, especially if that is your particular ailment, you want to try to get the hammer to drop, or in this case the striker to drop, without any disturbance of the front sight post. There's several ways to accomplish that, and we're going to touch on a couple. Like with all things, you have to establish a foundation, a good foundation, in order to have success later on. If you take, for instance, a tree doesn't start from the leaves and grow down. It grows from the roots up. A firearm stance is essentially the same thing. What we start with is our feet. We want them in a comfortable position, approximately square to the target, and then we move up to the knees. We want them slightly bent because most firearm sessions are going to be a little bit lengthy, and you don't want to pass out. You want your hips approximately square to the target and bent forward as well, kind of taking up kind of a squat stance. Chest square to the target, and then your arms need to extend squarely from your shoulders toward the target, and then your head dips down behind your gun. And that's the approximate proper shooting stance for the Isosceles position that I teach all my students. And from there, let's go on ahead and take it to the board. To establish a natural point of aim, which is the most automatic and the easiest to repeat time and time and time again, therefore it will be the most accurate, you have to establish the same thing every single time. So every time you take this stance, ensure that your feet are in the exact same position, and ensure that your knees, your waist, your shoulders, and your hands are in the same position. In order to do that, we start with our feet square to the target, and for intents and purposes, this dot is going to be our target for the day. Your feet square to the target, your knees are comfortably bent, your hips are comfortably bent toward the target. You push your rear end out just a little bit, it kind of helps take a little bit of the stress off of your lower back. Bend forward at the waist, your shoulders are square, lower your head, close your eyes, and press your hands toward the target, keeping your head low between your arms. Now look up with your eyes closed, look up toward your hands, and now open your eyes, and the target should be approximately between your thumbs. Okay? From this position, in order to check it again, you want to pull your hands back, lower your head and close your eyes, put your hands to your sides and stand straight up. From here, turn to your right, kind of twisting your body, and then allow your body to unwind naturally. Don't fight the turn, just allow it to unwind naturally and come to a spot where it stops. Now, from the feet up, bend at the knees, bend at the hips, keep your eyes closed and your gaze down, shoulders square, bring your hands up to the center line, press them forward, keep your head down, eyes closed. Now with your eyes closed, raise your head, and now open your eyes, and the spot should still be right between your thumbs. If you do this time and time again, you develop what is referred to as a natural point of aim. From that point, all other stances will reference from. You'll see that even though, because people tell me all the time, well, Mike, I can't always take that stance. That's all right. Once it becomes ingrained in your system, your body will reference that point, and it doesn't matter. On me now, I've shot so many rounds and practiced this so deep and so many times, I can have my lower body turned and my upper body twisted, and my upper body will index properly to the natural point of aim position. And that's how we reach our point of aim. Earlier I said that practice makes perfect. Well, and then I said after that, and we're going to fix that, because and what we need to fix is practice doesn't make perfect. If you practice incorrectly, then all you're doing is ingraining poor techniques. If you practice this every time, it's perfect practice. It's something that you can gauge, it's something that you can repeat, and it's something that you can see. It gives you a quantifiable item, a quantifiable ability that you can walk away from and say, yes, I nailed that every single time. So that it helps you with this, okay? So let's go on ahead and move on. We've already established our natural point of aim. We know that we go from our feet to our knees to our waist to our shoulders to our hands. We want to get the hands pressing from the center line out to the target. So now what you want to try to achieve is developing a sweet spot to where your eyes can look forward and almost simultaneously focus on a distant target and your sights. I refer to it as the sweet spot. I'm going back to my plastic gun or my training aid. This is the Glock look-alike. This is the plastic version. There is no barrel. The gun is totally inert, just for demonstration purpose only. I've already set up my feet. I've already set up my knees, my waist, my shoulders. I bring the gun to the sweet spot, proper grip. All of this is predicating that you already have a proper grip set up. Got the proper grip. My head is over my weapon. I press it out in front of me, and then I look up. I should be able to see clearly my front sight. My rear sight notch should be a little bit hazy, but still very accurately defined to where you can see equal light left and right of the front sight post. Press it out in front, and it should be set up right on your dot every single time. I refer to this location right here as the sweet spot. You need to be able to establish that sweet spot and hit that spot every single time. That was a little low, that was a little high, that was a little right, that was a little left. You need to have it straight ahead, so where if your weapon went off here, the bullet would land in the target anyway. So just press it straight out in front of you. So now as we go back to our target, I set up my stance, I have my pseudo weapon in my hand, I've got it here set up on in my center line of my chest. Deep breath, relax. Knees bent, hips bent, head forward. Close your eyes, press the gun forward toward the target. Lift your head with your eyes closed and open your eyes. Okay, at this point, my weapon is pointed almost exactly at the dot. I'm a little bit to the left. So what I can do is bring the weapon back, stand back up, hands to my sides. Now, if my weapon is pointing to my left, I want to bring my right foot back about 1/2 inch. It doesn't take much. So you lift your heel, now you're on your toe, you turn it to the right, you turn it to the left as you draw it back, and that'll allow you to easily measure how much you pull it back. You establish yourself, you allow yourself to unwind again, Nice and relaxed. Close your eyes. Just let your body stop your movement. Bend at the knees, bend at the waist, bend at the hips. Shoulders square. Press. Keep your head down. Eyes closed. With your eyes closed, raise your head and look. Now my sights are dead center of the target, just a little bit below. So now I've established the fact that I can set up on a repetitive stance every single time to where I don't even have to have my eyes open in order to hit the center line of the target.
Willst du, bis der Tod euch scheidet?